Okay, so let's start today's lecture. At last class, we discussed about the concordant bodies and discordant bodies. So thereafter, we will discuss about the mode of formation. Actually, the grain size of an igneous rock mainly depends on its mode of formation, because this rocks often contains different types of minerals, most of the cases multiple minerals. So based on the cooling rate and the molecular concentration of the constituents, that means which one is the major constituents and which one is the minor constituents, these factors may govern the mode of formation, and depending on its mode of formation, characteristics, physical properties also varies as well. And the next one is the viscosity of magmatic materials. So let's start to discuss in details one by one. The first one is the rate of cooling. So when the magmatic bodies comes from volcanic eruptions, it's very high, in a very high temperature, as the rapid release of temperature due to the sudden change. Actually, the core of the earth have very high temperature, and when this molten magma released and come to the earth's surface, the temperature the temperature differentiation is very high. So due to this rapid cooling, and sometimes it may have insufficient time for the crystallization process. You may know the crystallization occurs when the temperature is releasing very slowly. The natural crystal structure of an minerals is formed then in that process. So as the mineral grains remains smaller size, because the crystallization is occurred very rapidly, so the grain size or crystallization is less crystallized structure, and which resultant rocks will be fine grained rocks. That means the individual grain of the rocks will be finer. And if whereas in some cases, if the rate of the cooling is gradual, that means they have a sufficient time for the process of crystallization. So in that cases, the mineral crystals will be grow larger in size, which results the coarse grained rock. So one you may easily identify whether the mechanisms occurs during its formation. If some rocks are formed inside the earth surface, that means in few class back we discussed these types of rocks, dikes, cone sheets, mainly. Another category is known as the intrusive igneous rocks and the extrusive igneous rocks. So if an rock igneous rock is formed by in intrusive form, that means it solidifies inside the earth's surface. In those cases, the temperature rate of cooling is
স্যার
may
স্যার
have
ভোলকানিক নেকটা স্যার যদি একটু আবার বুঝিয়ে দিতেন স্যার একটু ভালো হতো স্যার, ওটা বুঝি নাই স্যার।
volcanic neck.
জি
Okay,
স্যার।
I think last class volcanic neck means when the sometimes magmatic materials are solidifies in the neck of the active volcano. That means uh, the magmatic materials get out, and when the internal pressure is not sufficient enough, that means the eruption is very close to completion. In that cases, some materials trapped in the volcanic neck. Okay, that means suppose if you consider it as a pipe or flow path. So some matter when it's flow continue after a continuous flow, that means the flow is very close to end. In that case, some materials may uh, trapped or remained in the pipe. Okay, suppose if it is as it is not fully liquid, it's some viscous fluid type. That means and this process when the cooling is started already, that means after volcanic eruption it is very close to completion. You may find many videos in YouTube, and you must see that in those cases the temperature is reducing very rapidly. In that case, sometimes these viscous materials, that means magma, solidifies inside the volcanic neck or path. So these types of shapes, that means it maybe look like a neck shape or conical shape. Actually, it would be better if I can show in this case. Okay, I will try later. So
Okay, sir.
if forms in these cases, so it will be called the volcanic necks. Okay. And first okay, now we discussed about the rate of cooling. So if the cooling and condensation is occurs in the inside the earth surface, that means for intrusive igneous rocks, there may be different process of rate of cooling rather than which rocks are extrusive igneous rocks. That means the rocks are directly exposed, the magma are directly exposed to the environment or atmosphere. So the temperature change, there is a gradient of temperature change will obviously different from one case to another case. And for this reason the particle size and the grains will also different from the intrusive igneous rocks. Again, another some few points, you may find some videos in YouTube also. Last time I browsed, the volcanoes are very close to the ocean. So in those cases, when eruption is occurs, the magmas are flowing in the hilly areas, and then thereafter it uh, get close to water. So the cooling process will be very rapid compared to another cases. So here is some example, these types of examples for practical rate of cooling of magmas. And also depend, it will depends on from country to country, weather, and the obviously the season, that means the ambient temperature. This may also go on. And now the next one, the molecular concentration of the constituents. As the magmatic body contains multiple minerals, that means not a single mineral. So if certain minerals have a higher concentration, the resulting mineral grains from those molecules grow in larger size. That means if the concentration of a certain that means suppose an igneous rock composed of major constituents, minor minerals, that means two, three, four, sometimes multiple minerals. So suppose one minerals have 90%, that means in a magma there may have 90%, 95% of certain single minerals. In those cases, the molecule size will be larger compared to the low concentration. Okay, so this is another factor. Next one is the viscosity of the magmatic minerals. That means as I discussed earlier, these magmatic bodies are viscous types. That means and when temperature is high, its viscosity will reduced, and when the temperature is continuously low, the viscosity will increase gradually, and one time it will be solidified. So the viscosity of uh, magma also govern the mineral grain size of the resulting rocks. If the magma have low viscosity, that means it can flow very easily, so the molecules move freely through the melt. That means the low viscosity means it's very it will be goes very close to water, that means free flowing. Okay, and if the viscosity is high, that means it will takes times to move from one point to another point. So actually it's indirectly related with the density, that means density of magma. So if the viscosity is high, the magmatic resulting magma will be stiff. That means the free movement of the molecules is restricted. That means the crystallization is occurring, and if the viscosity is very low, in that case you may find at one point the the grains are forming already, crystallization has started. At the same times it can flow with the molten magma. It may be compared with something like the ice bar, something like that. That means the due to the lowering the temperature, ice is forming at the same times. Actually, in the winter countries, you may find so with the flowing of water. As the water have the low viscosity, that means the ice crystal is already starts to forms, but it may flow with the uh, liquid. That means the as the stiffness is very low. But if the stiffness is high, that means the viscosity is very high, so the free movement is restricted in some cases. Now okay, so these three are the
স্যার হ্যালো স্যার লো ভিসকোসিটির সাথে মানে লার্জ গ্রেইন হওয়ার জিনিসটা বুঝলাম না স্যার
আচ্ছা লো ভিসকোসিটি দ্যাট মিন্স তোমার না লো ভিসকোসিটি হলে মনে করো smaller size, okay. Low viscosity means it's moved a large path, okay. It have a chance to move a large path. In that case, suppose a small single crystal is formed already, and when it will flow in a long distance, that means it have enough time for the crystallization. And while it is rolling, consider a small piece of rock is rolling throughout the liquid, so it have the chance to we integrated with another small molecules, okay. That means single small crystals while flowing through another, there may be some adhesive property, or there may be some further crystallization, so that one grains can connect it to another one, okay. So as there is a chance of moving free movement, that means the molecules is crystallizing as well as moving. That means in this combination of these two action, both the molecular size will be increased, and which results the coarse grain minerals. So this one, the next one is the Boyens reaction series. This is actually a reaction series. That means while we discussed the last few minutes about the mode of formation. That means while forming the liquid to solid rock, that means the molten viscous magma, magmatic body, those contains various minerals, and these minerals are crystallized gradually as the temperature from high temperature to low temperature. And while forming these minerals are formed. So in these steps, the entire process, this never happens that suppose, okay, this the quartz, the minerals of quartz is the olivine, suppose it's olivine. So from olivine to quartz, it occurs in a single steps. No, actually it goes through a complex transformation. That means while temperature is reducing, the crystal and the internal structure combinations may change, and with a series of reaction, that means with a series of transformation, the finally the rock is formed. So one minerals transform to another one, and in this continuous process, there may be a series of interrelated minerals. That means suppose for the discontinuous reaction, olivine, pyroxene, amphibial, and biotite, and thereafter potassium feldspar, muscovite, and finally it turns to quartz. So this reaction series, that means this continuous process, is termed as the Boyens reaction series. Though which one may be discontinuous, or maybe continuous reaction. That means if there is any gap in the reaction process, so those will be termed as the discontinuous. And next one, another discussion. This is about magmatic differentiation. These terms actually denotes the process of separation. Differentiation means the separation. That means there will have some separation, internal separation of magmatic bodies, okay. That means within the magmatic bodies, there may be different there must be different mineral constituents. So while this cooling occurs, the differentiation will happen. In general sense, if a mixture of liquid or semi liquid, that means semi viscous liquid, may contain different size of minerals, or different size of particles. So while it is cooling down or while it is flowing through a surface, obviously there may occur some segregation, okay, or difference separation due to some natural reasons, like the gravitational force, the particles or molecular size, their weight, their shape, also the flow rate, etc., many things. So here we summarized some reasons of some reason of magmatic differentiation. The first one, the prime one, is the gravitational differentiation. That means the process of crystallization is progresses within the magmatic body. So there may need some time to complete the crystallization process. That means once the crystallization is started, there have some crystal already formed, and uh, the remaining portion is liquid. So the earlier formed minerals, those will be settled down due to their weight. As the crystallization occurs, its density is increased. That means particle size, it's transferred from liquid to solid. So the liquid solid portion will be settled down, and thus the separation of these themselves will remaining the magmatic body. That means there will have an internal separation of already formed minerals. So this is the gravitational differentiation. And next one is the differentiation due to the fractional crystallization. That means if the full crystallization is not occurred, that means the fractional crystallization, which results the difference in the mineral aggregation. In the difference fractional crystallization process, the center of the crystallizations are formed within the cooling magmatic mass. That means the molecules dispersed within the magmatic body and attracted towards those centers. That means suppose there is a large volume of magma, and in this volume of magma, some scattered crystals are formed throughout the bodies. And if the center, that means suppose I consider one mineral centers, then it attracts the remaining ones, the surroundings minerals. So while they are moving towards the centers, considering one mineral as centers, and this formation is continuously goes on. That means one single crystal, it attracts some another crystals, and those are combined together, and with the passage of time it will create the rocks. So in this process also the separation is going out from the main mass. That means you may find the core is most dense, and the outer shell, that means the continue the smaller shapes also, the smaller grains will remain in the comparing in the outer shell. That means the density will be increased in the centers, and it will dispersed or decreasing towards is the radius. So this is another terms. That means due to the fractional crystallization.
স্যার
Okay.
স্যার ওটা স্যার সেন্টারে কেন হয়? এটা তো স্যার যেহেতু কুলিং হচ্ছে ক্রিস্টালাইজেশন হচ্ছে, এটা তো স্যার সেন্টারে না হয় বাইরের দিকে হওয়ার কথা ছিল। সেন্টারে আমরা
Actually, it depends on the attraction force. Okay, that means suppose one crystal center means actually suppose one crystal is formed, and there may have some surrounding other crystals surrounding the liquids, surrounding one, considering one as a principal one. Suppose I consider as a principal one crystal, and there may have many other crystal molecules the surrounding it. So there will be attractive force. Okay, so the attractive force will always towards the center. That means uh, from the outer, actually you is correct, the go should go outward if there is no attraction force. Okay, so if the same minerals are have a tendency, same crystal have a tendency to grow its size, so in those cases it will attract towards one another and will move through the throughout the centers. Then another one is the center will be in a liquid form. That means the cooling is generally the cooling is starts from the outer shell. Okay, so from a liquid body it starts from the outer surface. So as the core is will remains most of them liquid time, so there is a chance, or there is a space for free movement. Okay, the outer shell is generally starts goes for the solidification process. So the free movement of these crystals, this is restricted. Okay, as the crystallization is already occurs in the outer shell. So next one is the differentiation due to the liquid immiscibility. That means the hot molten magma, there may be number of immiscible liquid phases. That means the liquids are may have different phases. So the cooling and the crystallization of those phases are separate from each other. That means if you consider you are mixing two oil, suppose for an example, suppose the coconut oil and olive oil, so you mix both them thoroughly, it's apparently look like a single liquid or single viscous materials. In magma, this is the same. Multiple minerals, multiple types of liquids, those have different phases. That means the cooling phases, crystallization phases, these are entirely different from one another. So apparently when it is a liquid condition, it acts simply as a single liquid, but while it's cooling, or if you allow it for rest, or if you put this thoroughly mixed mixture in a freeze. Suppose if you put this oil mixture or liquid mixture in a freeze, so then what will happen? It will segregate with, if you allow at a certain time, it will these two liquids will segregate from each other. And even if the segregation is not possible, if you decrease the temperature rapidly, this will form from a liquid to solid. So in this process, you may find that the crystallize as the crystallization phase, or the crystallization process is different from one another. So there you will find a differentiation. That means there may not find a homogeneous solid materials. That means there will be no homogeneous mixture. There will occur some aggregates. That means mineral rock aggregates, or the rock minerals. You may find a differentiation. So this is due to this different phase of the liquids, immiscible liquids. Next one is the differentiation due to filter pressing. This is actually an internal mechanism. That means according to the previous explanation, this is clear to us that the earlier forms minerals, those are magmatic materials, so those are already settled down. Okay, so that means actually if we think it may be like a layer of filter type materials. That means layer of solid materials, and they are above this the new molten magma bodies are coming, that the previous molten magmas have already. So due to this process, the previously formed one may acts like a filter. That means while it's cooling, that means while the cooling is occurs, there you may find some cracks. That means due to the internal compressional stress. Okay, due to the during the cooling process, this will face an internal compressional stress. That means the crystals and the minerals will be attracted towards the centers, and due to this attraction, the entire body is like to turns face and compressional stress. Those means it's try to compress towards the center. Due to this process, this is actually termed as the filter pressing. Thus the liquid materials is expelled. That means the squeezing is occurs, The separating from the separation of the crystal minerals will also occurs in this stage. That means the less size as materials will remains towards the to the outer side, and the large grains, those will be attracted towards the center. So this is another differentiation process. That means due to the internal squeezing or the earlier formed minerals. So this is some factors those governs the magmatic differentiation. So up to this, our discussions regarding the igneous rocks, its formation, different types of rocks, the factors those governs the mode of formations, and what is magmatic differentiations, its different stages and its different parameters we discussed. So in this slide, like this, here are some important igneous rocks are listed: granite, uh, basalt, etc. Many things. So these are the some examples of igneous rocks. Now we will discuss about the sedimentary rock. Actually, the sedimentary rocks are nothing new. In sedimentary rocks, the minerals will remain same as the metamorphic rock or the igneous rocks, as there is no new crystallization is occurs. That means those are uh, uh, actually transported, deposited from the previous or different other rocks. The pre-existing rocks, those are on down due to the weathering agents. Later we will discuss some weathering agents, and in these courses, madam may discuss some. There may have some topics regarding the weathering, transportation, and deposition. That means the geological processes. Those are done by a river or wind, etc. So. When the a single pre-existing rocks are owned due to the weathering agent or weathering actions, these fragments, rock fragments, or the sediments, those are actually transported by nature and then stored in a certain portion, like suppose this may be carried out by water bodies like lakes, ocean, river, etc., and then accumulated in a location. Uh, Suppose most commonly in a ditch or valley, uh, or some other depression of the earth surface. So when this accumulation is occurs, and thereafter due to geological change and natural forces, earthquake or other natural forces, tectonic forces, those may leads to formation, compaction, and cementation of these sediments. Those formed the sedimentary rocks are often called as the secondary rocks. That means these loose depositions are compacted by external forces, and due to these external forces, the extra liquids may squeeze out, and the cementation, there may have some natural cementing constituents in the those sediments. So finally the rock is formed as the sediments are formed in layer by layer. That means suppose last 500 years the this river collects water from suppose a single river collect water from the uphill. So the fragments, rock fragments, sometimes clay, silt, sand, such types of small particles are transported from the upstream side. So those materials are collected in the downstream in certain segments. So you may find there a distinct layer. That means the sediments are actually formed in layer by layer. So these deposition, when the sedimentary rocks are found or explode in some geological works and natures, the distinct layers of the rock are easily can be identified. So now we will discuss about the formation, in which process actually the sedimentary rocks are formed. Although we already have some basic idea about the sedimentary rock, the igneous rock, those are from uh, active volcanoes or magmatic materials, and the sedimentary rocks, those are the transformation of igneous rocks. So in the this transformation or the formation of sedimentation, the weathering and erosion, this is the very first step. The pre-existing rocks, when these rocks are exposed to weather, like in atmosphere, due to them some weathering action like wind, um, or ice fall, or sometimes atmosphere may have some constituents as like some environmental issue, things like acidic environment or some other things. The erosion is occurs. That means if you put a single rock for thousands of years, it will go corroded due to natural forces. So the fragmentation is occurs. That means it will fragment into finer portions, finer particles. So this the weathering, this is the effect of weathering. And sometimes uh, others erosion process may due to the mechanical erosion or chemical erosion. Mechanical means suppose a rock of sufficient size, this may be rest in the river bed. You may find in some hilly river in the Silet belt, where the rocks are actually comes from the as the hills are formed of solid rocks, while in the rainy season from the upstream from the India side, due to the huge water flow, sometimes rocks are also comes or move roll over the riverbed. So due to this rolling process, the corrosion is occurs. That means the mechanical corrosion. That means these rocks are rolled throughout the riverbeds. Due to this rolling process, there may create some finer fragments, and sometimes due to chemical actions as well. If the water or the environment have some corrosive chemicals having sufficient concentration, that may also suppose carbon dioxide. This is also an corrosive from corrosive, have some corrosive nature for some specific minerals. So while those minerals are exposed to environments, the corrosion may occur. And the next one is the transportation. That means these fragments created during the weathering process and erosion process. Now these will be transported from one point to another point. That means by running of water, moving ice, wind, etc. These are the natural agents for transportation. And the water transportation, this is actually the main transporting agents, as the it have the power to move sufficient larger particles. The wind can accumulate only the small particles, that means very fine particles, those can move or fly through with the wind speed. And these transportations are is depends on the size, that is particle size, density. Those are actually this is the weight. That means velocity of the transport medium, that as I discussed already. The water is the prime transport agent, because uh, in the monsoon the water the actually the river have very high water flow. So there is an excellent chance for the large particles to move from one point to another point. And wind only transport the smaller particles, and sometimes ice, this is also an a transporting agent. And next one is the deposition. The transportation of weathering products continues to a long distance as long as the velocity is sufficient. That means the transporting medium uh, may not have the same velocity throughout the length. That means if I consider a river from upstream to downstream, so during the steep slope, if the river bed slope is very steep, so the transportation will be occurs in a very quick process. But after a certain distance, if the river bed is going to the mild slope, that means if the slope is mild, corresponding the velocity will also reduce. So if the velocity is reduced, what will happen? The large particles will be static in the river bed due to its inertia. Okay. uh, and then there may have still chance to go with for the small particles can move, but the total process it depends on the velocity. So when sufficient velocity is not found, these materials will be deposited, or if there may have a depression in the riverbed, so the materials may also deposited in those points. So actually these things are noted here. That means the coarser or the larger particles will settle first, and there will be, and thereafter the smaller particles. So this is the deposition process. And next one, and the last one, is the uh, consolidation and cementation. Consolidation means the compression. If I simply explain these two together, the natural depositions have some minerals, those have cementing property. Suppose gypsum, this is readily found in nature. Gypsum have cementing property. This gypsum is mostly used in production of cement or other cementing materials. So this is actually found in nature. And lime, this is also, lime means calcium hydroxide. Okay, lime also have some natural binding power. Gypsum means calcium sulfate maybe. So these are actually found in nature. So while deposition occurs, these deposited layers may contain cementing minerals or materials. And the consolidation, the consolidation is the compressions due to the this consolidation is can be occurred the two way. First one due to the self weight. That means a layer is formed. So if I considers one particle or one small thick layer, the overlying layer may the weight of overlying layer, those will also act as an surcharge load. That means this surcharge uh, will act as the consolidation agent, or sometimes the external load, the earthquake force, tectonic forces, those also um, initiate for the consolidation process. So in these two combined actions, the sedimentation starts, and finally it will creates the sedimentary rock. And now another process is actually noted here. This is the lithification. Lithification is a complex process. That means already discussed, this is a loose sediments. That means as the sediments sedimentation occurs by nature, so the sediments are actually in a loose condition. So throughout this lithification process, these loose sediments will turn into a strong sedimentary rock. So this is actually lithification. And when this is occurred by the burial pressure or slightly increase the temperature beneath the kilometers or of the overlying sediments. That means suppose a sedimentation is occurred in a river valley or in a hilly area, or anything, any other points. And due to the geological changes, this sedimented layer or loose sediment layer may go some kilometers beneath the earth's surface. Okay. And at the temperature may increase in the earth's in inner earth's surface, and as it goes down, that means sometimes actually land subsidence occurs. Okay, due to the land subsidence, sometimes the upper layer goes down. Okay, goes through the earth. So in those processes, the overlying sediment, or sometimes this depression will filled by other materials or other deposits by after long time. So the overlying layer, the temperature, those are combinedly initiate for the lithification process. So here actually the same things, the cementation. And uh, next one, as the in this cementation process, some additional cementing agents may come from the groundwater. Okay, if one single layer or loose sediments is already initiate in the earth crust, or inner surface of earth, so there have the groundwater circulation. So groundwater also our groundwater also contains various minerals. So these minerals will also initiate for the further cementation and the recrystallization. Some minerals, small scale solution, or redeposition of minerals. That means, in general sense, there have no chance of crystallization in the uh, sedimentation process or sedimentary rocks, as the crystallization is generally occurs in igneous rocks from the hot molten magmatic materials to rock. But beneath the earth's surface, as the temperature is higher, there may have some chance of recrystallization. That means some small grain minerals, uh, they have chance to grow large sizes. Or this is actually very similar to cementation, but in this process, as the cementations are actually binds two or more particles one another, but in recrystallization, some small mineral crystals, those are reformed and will create a large one. Okay, so the cementation is the formation of addition of multiple crystal forms or multiple particles, but recrystallization is reshaping of and entire bodies, and it will become a larger one. And next one is the compaction. This is actually as before, like consolidation. But in compaction process, the overlying pressure will decrease the volume, and during the compaction or consolidation, both are actually the same thing. The squeezing is occurred again. The squeezing is occurred as the if you squeeze a loose mass, solid mass containing water or void. So if you squeezed it or compact with the consolidation pressure, a certain amount of water will released rapidly released. Those are actually depends on the compaction force or the consolidation pressure. So and other the size of the minerals or the size of the particles, and the entire void ratio, solid to void, those things will govern the compaction process. Okay, I think the time is very close to our class completion. So next class, actually next class we will discuss about our some other topics. The classification of sedimentary rocks. This sedimentary rocks will classified based on its formation, sedimentation, as well as formation process, etc. So next class we will discuss about this, and also the our last topic in the rock, that one is the metamorphic rock. That means the formation of metamorphic rocks, metamorphism, which is metamorphisms, and what are the agents the process of metamorphisms, the etc. So hopefully in next class we will complete our these topics of the rock and minerals. So if you have any question, you may ask shortly, or we will close the class. আচ্ছা, তোমাদের হচ্ছে এই আজকের ক্লাস শেষ হোপফুলি। তোমাদেরকে আমি হচ্ছে C-205 এর মার্কসগুলা দিয়েছিলাম। আমি খুব সম্ভবত একটা ক্লাসরুমে শেয়ার করছি, দুইটা ক্লাসরুমে শেয়ার করার তো খেয়াল ছিল না। সবাই কি দেখতে পারছো আশা করি?
জি স্যার, আমরা পাইছি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, হ্যাঁ, যদি দুই একজন অবশ্য ইয়ে ছিল, ঠিক আছে, আমি তোমাদের নোটগুলো নিছি, দুই একজন মেইল করছিল, একজন বা দুইজন মনে মেইল করছে। সো এটা আমি দেখে যদি ঠিকই আছে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্সের ব্যাপারে, যেটা ওই যে অফলাইন কিছু ক্লাস ছিল আমাদের প্রথম দিকে, তা আমি অফলাইন ক্লাসে, অনলাইন ক্লাসে মোটামুটি সবাই প্রেজেন্ট, ওটা সমস্যা নাই। অফলাইন ক্লাসে কয়েকজন একটু অ্যাবসেন্ট ছিল, দুই একটা ক্লাস, বা সঞ্জয় স্যারের ক্লাসে আমি দিল কয়েকজন একটু অ্যাবসেন্ট ছিল। সো এটা দেখেই দিছিলাম। তারপরেও যদি ইয়ে হয়, তোমাদের কোয়ারি থাকে, দেন তোমরা মেইল ড্রপ করো, আমি হচ্ছে দেখে, সবাই যদি আরো কোশ্চেন না থাকে তাহলে নেক্সট উইকে আমি দেখে ফিডব্যাক জানিয়ে দিব। ওকে, তো ঠিক আছে।
আর এটা কি আমাদের সঞ্জয় স্যার আর আপনার স্যার দুজনে দেয়া ছিল?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ওখানে দেখো মার্কস টোটাল আউট অফ 90 একসাথে।
স্যার আমরা স্যার পাই নাই স্যার।
কারা পাও নাই?
বি সেকশন পাই নাই স্যার।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, আমি বি সেকশনে এখনই শেয়ার করে দিচ্ছি। সেকশন বি তে আমি দিয়ে দিচ্ছি। আমি খুব সম্ভবত খেয়াল ছিল না, আমার ওই 205 এর দুইটা ক্লাসরুম ছিল, তো ওই জন্য এটা ইয়ে ছিল। ওটা আমি দিয়ে দিচ্ছি, অসুবিধা নাই। হ্যাঁ, তোমরা দেখে নিও। এই তো ওখানে টোটাল আউট অফ 90 মার্কস দেওয়া আছে, বাকি 70% তোমাদের তো এক্সাম যখন হয় তখন। এই ঠিক আছে, তাহলে আমি ক্লাসটা ক্লোজ করছি।
মিনারেল দেয়া আছে, সবগুলোই কি স্যার দেখতে হবে? মানে হিউজ
সবগুলো দেখতে হবে না, মোটামুটি ইম্পর্টেন্ট গুলো আসলে লিস্ট আপ করতে হবে, যেগুলো মোস্ট কমন হয়। অনেকগুলো মিনারেলস এর নাম তোমরা জানো, ওইগুলা লিস্ট আপ করলে অনেক হয়ে যাবে। আর কিছু প্রিন্সিপাল রক প্রত্যেকটাতে আমরা ডিসকাস করব, দেখবা। ধরো কিছু প্রিন্সিপাল ইগনিয়াস রক, মানে মোস্ট কমন আর কি আমাদের ইগনিয়াস রক। তারপর কিছু কমন মেটামরফিক রক থাকবে। সো এইগুলা যদি আমরা এগুলাই হচ্ছে কি আর কি আমরা ইয়ে করব, ওইগুলোর জন্য যেগুলো রক লাগে, বা মিনারেলস যেগুলো গভর্নিং, ওইগুলাই হচ্ছে কি মোটামুটি জানলে হবে। আর মিনারেলস তো থাউজেন্ডস অফ মিনারেলস আছে তোমার নেচারে, বইও অনেকগুলো আছে। মোটামুটি ইম্পর্টেন্ট গুলো আমি দেখি, আমি ট্রাই করবো বই থেকে তোমাদেরকে কিছু লিস্ট আপ করে দিতে ইম্পর্টেন্ট গুলা। ওইটাই। তো ঠিক আছে, তাহলে ক্লাসটা ক্লোজ করি।